She didn't even bother to say it in private. Not in the kitchen. Not in the car. Not after one of her fake yoga sessions. No, she waited until the candles were lit, until her sons were sipping imported wine I paid for, until the damn caterer left with a fat tip I handed out, and then she raised her glass like she was announcing a promotion. Congratulations to us, and to my new beginning. We're divorcing. The silence hit like a dropped wine glass. I didn't say anything at first. I just looked at her. Her lipstick didn't even smudge when she smiled. Her diamond earrings, the ones I picked out from a boutique in Milan on our 20th anniversary, sparkled like they approved of her little performance. Her oldest son, Mark, had the nerve to laugh. Didn't expect him to take it so well, he said, taking another bite of my favorite duck confit like it was just another Tuesday. I slowly turned to him. Enjoy the evening, I said, my voice calm clear. It's the last normal one you'll have. He blinked. Julia narrowed her eyes. What's that supposed to mean? But I didn't answer. I just took a sip of my whiskey. The expensive kind. The one she used to call too smoky, but conveniently poured when her girlfriends came over to show off. Let's get one thing straight. I'm not the kind of man who breaks. I bend quietly. I adapt. I plan. And for 23 years, I built her the life she showed off at garden parties and Instagram brunches. The life she could afford to toss away with a toast, like it was just another handbag she got bored of. I looked around the dining room. The lighting? I wired it. The table? Milled from reclaimed oak I bargained down from a Vermont supplier. The house? Renovated from the foundation up. She used to say, Alan, you're so good with your hands. Yeah, I was. But not just with drills and drywall. With contracts. With asset flows. With shell LLCs she never bothered to ask about. She thought I was boring. Predictable. The kind of man who would just quietly fade away while she strutted into her new beginning. She had no idea I'd already started mine. Years ago, when she first started canceling plans without explaining. When she suddenly needed spa weekends alone. When her phone began living face down. She thought I didn't notice. That I was too focused on retirement planning and tax write-offs to notice the hotel receipts she kept forgetting to hide properly in the laundry room. I'm not the kind of man who raises his voice. I'm the kind who keeps the receipts. I glanced at her cake. A custom mousse from that French place she loved. She hadn't touched it. Too busy performing. She always was more into performance than taste. Funny how often people overlook the architect of their dreams. Until he pulls the last beam. Before we go any further, if you're still reading, do me one favor. Hit the subscribe button. I don't usually ask, but over 90% of you listen without subscribing. And when you do subscribe, it tells the team that our stories matter. That someone's listening. That it's worth showing exactly how deep betrayal cuts and how cleanly payback lands. Back to Julia. She topped off her glass again, not noticing my silence wasn't surrender, it was assessment. Her sons, neither mine biologically, both mine financially, chatted about their new startup idea. The one I quietly funded through a donor-advised fund she never connected to me. Her youngest, Evan, asked me what I thought about the pitch deck. I smiled. I think it'll be interesting to see how things unfold in the next few weeks. Julia gave me that look, like I was a bug crawling across her dessert plate. The one she used when she wanted to shut down conversations she couldn't control. Can we not do this tonight? She said with a sigh. It's a celebration. A fresh start. Fresh start. Cute. Sure, I said. To fresh starts. I raised my glass. They all toasted again, clueless. Mark went back to talking about the Porsche test drive Julia had booked for him next weekend. He assumed the down payment was already taken care of. I let him. The best part about being underestimated? No one checks the escape hatch you've been building under their throne. Let her have her toast. I'd already had mine. And tomorrow, the walls would begin to shift. One card. One clause. One silence at a time. At 6:12 a.m., the gas pump beeped angrily as Julia stared at the screen. Declined. She tapped the card again. Her platinum Amex, the one she liked to wave around like a wand at Nordstrom. Nothing. Declined again. Must be the chip, she muttered, pulling out her backup Visa. The rose gold one she used to tell her friends was just for emergencies. Declined. The screen flashed red. The pump reset itself. Julia's reflection on the glossy display looked oddly small. She fumbled for her phone, already annoyed. The yoga class in Buckhead started in 35 minutes, and she hated being the last one to roll out her mat. She pressed the unlock button. No signal. She lifted it higher, moved around to the passenger side like that would magically summon 5G. Still nothing. She tapped her banking app. It hung. Then force closed. She tried again. No connection. The usual login screen never appeared. A strange kind of silence grew in her chest. Not panic yet, but the dull, anxious kind that makes you blink a little too fast. She walked into the station, heels clicking on tile, now acutely aware she was overdressed for a chevron at dawn. The clerk looked like he'd been up all night gaming. She plastered on her practiced smile. "Hi. Do you have a landline I could borrow for a quick call? My phone's not working." He gestured behind the counter. "Payphone. Corner. Cute," she muttered, sliding in a crumpled dollar bill. She called the bank. The concierge number. No wait time. Another perk she always boasted about. "Good morning. Thank you for calling Crescent National. This is Anna." "My card's not working," Julia cut in. "Neither of them are. I'm locked out of my app. Can you please tell me what's going on?" Pause. "Can I get your full name and last four of your social?" She gave them. Another pause. This one longer. "I'm sorry, Ms. Walker, but the joint account has been separated. You are no longer listed as a cardholder or authorized user." Julia blinked, stunned. "That's not possible. I just used the card yesterday. This must be a system glitch." "I can assure you, ma'am, it's not. The account is still active, but your access was formally revoked as of 12:01 a.m. this morning." "Revoked by who?" "I'm not authorized to disclose." "It's my account." "No, ma'am. It was a joint account. The primary holder exercised separation rights." Julia clutched the cold metal of the payphone. "There has to be a mistake. This is absurd. I want to speak to a supervisor." "I can connect you, but before I do," the woman hesitated. "I'm seeing a note here you may want to be aware of." Julia's stomach dropped. "What note?" "There's a lien filed against a leased vehicle under your name. Late last night." Her voice cracked. "That car is mine. It appears it's leased through Walker-Moore Consulting Group. You're listed as a secondary user. The lease was formally canceled at 11:54 p.m. Her mouth dried. "You said there's a lien?" "Yes, a repossession order was filed electronically with the DMV. The vehicle is scheduled for impound if not surrendered voluntarily within 48 hours. The phone cord twisted between her fingers as the truth sank in like a slow poison. The car wasn't hers. The account wasn't hers. She wasn't on anything. She slammed the receiver down. A tired mother filling up a minivan glanced over at the noise. Julia stood there, blinking under the blue LED lights of a gas station canopy like a character in someone else's nightmare. She climbed back into her car, and just sat in the driver's seat for a minute, breathing through her teeth. The yoga class was definitely out. So was breakfast. And suddenly, so was the illusion that she could just glide through this divorce without friction. She turned the key in the ignition. The engine hummed, but something on the windshield caught her eye. A folded piece of paper, tucked under the wiper. Not a ticket. No handwriting. Just a printed slip, like a receipt. She stepped out, snatched it. In all caps. Vehicle tag for electronic monitoring. Surrender within 48 hours TO. Avoid penalties. There was a barcode. A case number. A signature. Alan's initials. It didn't hit her in the chest. It hit lower, like gravity shifting beneath her. Like the floor of her entire life was starting to slide. She stood in the lot, shaking. It was 6:19 a.m. She had no money, no access, and no clue what the hell Alan had done overnight. And worst of all, she had no idea what was coming next. By 10:03 a.m., Julia had already screamed at 2 bank tellers, thrown her yoga mat in the trash, and tried, unsuccessfully, to Venmo her favorite barista for a large oat milk latte. It was the first time she'd ever seen requests declined in red. She felt like a ghost with a purse. Every card a dead limb. Every app an empty hallway. When her phone finally buzzed back to life, she exhaled like a hostage. 2 missed calls, both from her lawyer, Rick Patton. A sleek divorce attorney from Midtown with slick back hair and a weakness for calling everything straightforward. She hit call back. He answered on the first ring. "Julia." "Finally." "Rick, something is wrong. Alan's freezing accounts, pulling leases, I can't even buy coffee." But Rick interrupted, and not with his usual calm. "Did you tell me he signed over the house last year?" She blinked. "What?" "Yes. Last Christmas. Remember? I told you he gave me the deed as a gift. Right? I just reviewed it again because his new filing referenced something I hadn't seen before." "Julia, why didn't you mention the trust?" "What trust?" Silence. Rick's voice dropped a register. The transfer wasn't direct. It wasn't a standard deed handoff. It was a provisional transfer from a family trust. Specifically, from a trustee, Alan's late sister's estate. She frowned, but her heart had started to beat differently now. "That's not possible. He gave me the house. He gave you access to the house, not ownership. And it's conditional. Conditional on what? There was a long pause. Clause 9.4a. Transfer of possession remains intact as long as the marriage remains legally active. Any unilateral dissolution by either party reverts ownership to the trust immediately unless jointly renegotiated. Julia, it's your signature on the bottom of that page. Dated December 25th. There's no way I signed something like that. I would have remembered. You initialed next to the clause. He didn't say it with malice. He said it like a man trying not to make a problem worse. Julia stood in the middle of her open-concept kitchen, the one with the imported tile and brushed brass fixtures, and looked around like she was seeing it for the first time. It felt off. The light was too bright. The air too still. I thought it was a gift, she said, voice smaller now. Rick exhaled hard. It was a gift. A conditional one. And with the divorce papers filed yesterday, by you, the conditions broken. She gripped the edge of the marble island. So what does that mean? Legally, it means, Julia, you never owned this house. You were a temporary occupant under a revocable clause. She turned, scanning the room. The wine rack. The built-in espresso machine. The framed house goals, art print she bought during their trip to Sedona. Another vacation Alan paid for, even though he stayed behind to finish consulting work. It's in my name, though. On paper. Rick sighed. On the decorative title copy he printed for you and put in that gold frame. The legal title? No, you're not listed. Something deep, something ugly, started gnawing at the base of her ribs. I want to challenge it, she said quickly. We'll file something. He tricked me. It won't work, Rick cut in. I just spoke to a colleague who saw the original filing. His lawyers covered it. Ironclad. And Julia, I need to ask something carefully. Did you tell me the truth about that signature? I don't know. It was Christmas. We had wine. He said it was symbolic. Not symbolic, Rick said, voice flat. It was strategic. She felt the weight of her robe on her shoulders now like it was made of sandbags. She slid down into one of the velvet dining chairs. How did I not see this? He didn't want you to see it. That's the point. Julia stared at the cold tile floor. Every inch of this house, every wall she had Instagrammed, every just another renovation she had told her friends about, it had all been built on an illusion. She stood up suddenly. I need to call Alan. I wouldn't, Rick said. Not yet. Why not? Because if I were him, I wouldn't answer. She hung up. Outside, a delivery van backed out of the driveway. The driver tipped his cap politely as she stepped out barefoot onto the stone porch. The sun was warm. Too warm. Then she saw it. A woman standing on the sidewalk across the street, holding a clipboard, City Records badge on her windbreaker, making notes. Julia stepped forward. Can I help you? The woman looked up. Oh, are you the current tenant? Tenant. She didn't answer, just turned and walked back inside. The door clicked shut behind her like a verdict. By noon, Julia had gone from denial to damage control. She'd thrown on her blazer, still wrinkled from last week's spa retreat, and stormed into her makeshift home office, a converted sunroom she once described as her command center. The French doors were open. A gentle breeze blew through the curtains. It felt wrong. Too peaceful. She opened her filing cabinet, which was mostly filled with motivational notebooks and old Pilates schedules, and started yanking out anything with Alan's name on it. Tax forms, retirement notices, trust documents she never read but signed because, as she used to say, Alan handles all the serious stuff. One folder stood out, thick, beige, with a gold tab she didn't recognize. She opened it. Inside, a trust declaration. Official. Bound. With seals. The name on the first page stopped her cold. Walker Family Trust, successor beneficiary, D. Whitman, deceased. Darla, Alan's older sister, died 6 years ago. Julia had worn black Chanel to the memorial and called it tasteful but not too heavy. They'd never been close. Darla was quiet, precise, always reading contracts and taking notes in margins with that strange fountain pen Alan kept in his drawer. Julia flipped the page. There was a clause highlighted in soft green ink, Darla's style. Occupancy of residential property at 812 Larkspur Drive granted on a rolling basis to listed partner, J. Walker, provided legal marital status remains uninterrupted. And below it, in the event of dissolution, unilateral or mutual, revocation of occupancy may be filed without appeal. Her signature. There it was. Same loop on the J, same little tail on the W she used when trying to be elegant. Dated 2 days before Christmas. She remembered that night. Alan had said, Just some updates. End-of-year estate stuff. He poured her that red she liked. Turn on soft jazz. There had been 3 pages to sign. She'd been too busy thinking about the matching luggage set she wanted. The paperwork slipped from her hands. She didn't even own the doorknobs. The doorbell rang. She opened it half expecting Alan. Or a courier. Maybe a news crew, at this point. Instead, a petite woman in a navy blazer stood there holding a manila envelope. Mrs. Walker? Yes. My name is Darla Evans. I'm counsel for the Walker Trust. Julia stared. Wait. Darla? Darla who? Darla Evans. Not Darla Whitman, your late sister-in-law. I was named trustee after her passing. Alan appointed me. I'm here to deliver notice of revocation of temporary occupancy. Julia's throat dried. You can't just show up and kick me out. I'm not kicking anyone out. I'm delivering paperwork. Her voice was calm, professional, polite, but unshakable. This is my home, Julia hissed. Alan gave it to me. Darla nodded slowly. You were granted conditional occupancy through the trust. That condition was marital status. Her filing received yesterday. She checked the top page. Your unilateral divorce notice activated clause 17.2 of the trust. She held out the envelope. Julia didn't take it. Darla set it gently on the stone porch. The revocation is effective in 14 calendar days. If you choose to vacate earlier, you'll avoid the enforcement step. What the hell does that mean? Darla smiled faintly. It means the trust can legally have you removed. But that's always a last resort. She turned to go, then paused. Also, just so you're aware, the garden shed and back lot are not included in your temporary access agreement. They're part of a separate holding, listed under Walker Legacy Green LLC. Julia blinked. That stupid shed? The one she let Evan use as a music studio? Alan had wrapped that, too. She stepped outside, her voice rising. Did he plan this? Did he start this years ago? Darla didn't turn back. Mrs. Walker, Alan is very thorough and very patient. The door closed behind her. Julia stood motionless in the entryway. Every wall, every cabinet, every inch of polished floor she'd once described to friends as her design dream suddenly felt borrowed. She grabbed her phone and called Rick. Voicemail. She called again. Still voicemail. Then her screen flashed. Incoming call, unknown. She answered. Julia. It was Rick, breathless. I just got a call from opposing counsel. They've already filed for property return enforcement. It's moving fast. I just spoke with someone from the trust. Some Darla. Alan's lawyer, Rick, cut in. She's a ghost in court filings. But every judge knows her. If she's delivering notices in person, it means Alan's locking this down airtight. But they can't just revoke the house. I live here. Julia, you signed everything. And they've prepped this for months. She sat down on the staircase, stunned. The wood felt colder than usual. Rick sighed. We need to meet. Now. As she hung up, her eye caught the art piece above the hallway bench. It read, Build a life you don't need a vacation from. She hated that quote now. Because she hadn't built a damn thing. She'd moved into someone else's architecture, and now the walls were politely asking her to leave. At 2:42 p.m., Julia stormed out of the house in a pair of oversized sunglasses and the tightest blazer she owned. She needed air. She needed validation. More than anything, she needed control, something to grab onto before the entire illusion of her life completely disintegrated. And that meant doing what she always did when her world felt small. She drove. The SUV gleamed in the driveway like it always had. Sleek, black, custom-tinted. People stared when she pulled up in it. Parking attendants at the country club called her ma'am and rushed to open the door. Baristas at Blue Bench remembered her order. Oh, you're the one with the X9? We love that one. Alan had handed her the keys 3 Christmases ago in a Tiffany box with a small bow and said, You deserve the best. She'd cried. Posted a photo of it with the caption, My husband knows me. The likes hit 4 digits by midnight. Today, though, something was different. A paper was flapping on the windshield, taped directly in the driver's side corner, official and bold, like it wanted to be seen. Julia froze mid-step. Her heels clicked once more against the pavement before she reached it. Notice of repossession. Issued by Regional Leasing Enforcement Division. Vehicle ID, X9, WC4-1119. VIN ending in 6732. Lessor, WMCG Holdings, LLC. Effective, immediate. Status, lease terminated. Authorized recovery scheduled, pending. Her stomach twisted. WMCG. What the hell was that? Then it hit her. Walker Moore Consulting Group. Alan's firm. The one he used to joke barely kept him busy. She always thought it was just his vanity project in retirement. She even used to mock it during wine nights with the girls. He still needs to feel important. I let him have his little company. Turns out, his little company owned her damn car. She yanked the paper off, stomped to the driver's side, and tried the handle. Unlocked. Good. At least. She turned the ignition. The screen blinked, then stalled. Secure Connect disabled. GPS lock active. Please contact your provider. The dashboard lit up like a crime scene. Warnings she'd never seen before. Lease expired. Call support. Immobilization in progress. Her hand gripped the wheel. She wasn't going anywhere. She dialed Rick. Again. Voicemail. She dialed Alan. Straight to voicemail. Her voice cracked. Alan, I swear to God, you think this is funny? You think cutting me off and playing car repo theater makes you the better person? She hung up, slamming her phone into the cup holder. That's when she noticed the glove compartment had been left open. Inside, a neatly folded paper. She reached over, pulled it out. Vehicle agreement. Lease number 448 WMCG. Lessee, Walker Moore Consulting Group. Authorized driver, Julia Walker. Revoked October 3rd, 001. In the margin, someone had written a note. Not Alan's handwriting. Likely Darlis. You are not the registered lessee. The vehicle will be recovered at 6 p.m. unless surrendered voluntarily. The line stung more than anything else. You are not the registered lessee. Julia slammed the compartment shut and sat back, panting like she'd run a mile uphill. How was this even possible? He gave her the keys. The bow. The box. That meant something. Except it didn't. It meant nothing. She was screaming before she realized it. Full-throated, red-faced rage at no one in particular. At Alan. At the paper. At the damn leasing company with its digital locks and smug little notices. She opened the door and hurled the crumpled repossession slip onto the lawn. An older couple walking their dog paused on the sidewalk. Everything all right, ma'am? Julia bared her teeth in something between a smile and a growl. Peachy. They walked on quickly. Back inside the car, she tried again to start it. The screen just blinked immobilized. Her phone buzzed with a new notification. Your Crescent National account balance, $0. It didn't even try to sugarcoat it. She stared at her reflection in the rearview mirror. Her lipstick was cracked. Her skin looked dry. For a moment, she didn't recognize herself. This was not how the day was supposed to go. This was not how she was supposed to go. 10 minutes later, a tow truck slowly rolled into view from down the street. She watched it in a daze. She knew, deep down, that Alan wouldn't stop at just the house or the money. Not him. Not the man she once called boring over wine. The one she'd said didn't have any fire left in him. Apparently, he just saved it. For this. Julia's brand had always been smoke, mirrors, and soft lighting. Her business card read Julia Walker, lifestyle consultant, embossed in gold, printed on 130 pounds linen stock. Her email signature included the phrase curating elegance for the modern executive woman. Her clients were a mix of local philanthropist wives, restless C-suite spouses, and old friends from yoga retreats who paid her to organize their closets and recommend luxury wallpaper. Her entire career had floated like a Chanel perfume bottle in a warm bath, undisturbed, sweet, and never questioned. Until Thursday. At first, it was subtle. An email canceling a session with Marla Chun, who had once described Julia as her style therapist. The subject line read, postponing for now, XX. But the body of the email was just one sentence. Thanks for your time. No reschedule. No explanation. Julia shrugged it off. Maybe Marla's husband was traveling. Maybe it was budget season. She texted her anyway. Just a quick, hope all's well. Let me know when's good for you, sparkling heart. And got no reply. Then another one. Angela Singh. Canceled her spring interiors revamp meeting 3 days before it was set to happen. No message. Just a calendar invite. Canceled by organizer. By the third cancellation, this time from Meredith Steele, who had never missed a session in 5 years, Julia started to feel the chill. Her inbox, once filled with bubbly messages and back-and-forth mood boards, was now mostly receipts and automated shipping updates. Even the group chat with her 4 longest clients, the Style Circle, she'd named it, went oddly quiet. She opened Instagram and checked her stories. Meredith had viewed them, but hadn't liked anything in days. Angela had unfollowed. Unfollowed. Julia sat on her cream leather office chair and whispered, "What the hell is going on?" She blamed gossip first. Divorce had a scent, and women like these could smell blood in a 5-mile radius. Maybe someone leaked something. Maybe Alan was already running his mouth. She checked her own name in Google Alerts. Nothing new. She called Marla. Straight to voicemail. Then she tried emailing a few newer leads, women she'd met at the last fundraisers. Every message she sent felt like she was tossing silk scarves into a wind tunnel. Nothing came back. By noon, she was pacing. Her brand wasn't big, but it was exclusive. Everything was built on referrals and whispered connections at luncheons and museum galas. She didn't advertise. She didn't need to. But now it was like she'd vanished. Then came the message that broke it. It was a forwarded email. Meredith again. Sent by mistake. Clearly meant for someone else. Subject: regarding Julia Walker. Body: Alan just called me. Said she's no longer affiliated with the board or the firm. Suggested we pause anything with her for now. Let's discuss later. Julia's hand froze on her mouse. Alan. Alan had called Meredith. She didn't even know he spoke to Meredith. And what did he mean, no longer affiliated? She wasn't on the board of Walker Moore, sure, but she was always introduced as part of the family. The wife. The face. The style. He'd used her image in their annual report once, for God's sake. She scrolled down. The email trail showed more. A quiet wave of Alan's influence moving across her whole client list like a polite tsunami. One of the women had replied, "Understood. Well, hold what? Hold what?" She threw her phone across the desk. It slid, clattering into her planner, the one she used to jot down color palettes and shopping itineraries. It was nearly empty now. Next week had just one name penciled in. And even that one felt like a coin toss. She stood in front of the mirror by her desk, staring at her reflection. Julia Walker, lifestyle consultant. It sounded ridiculous now. Who was she consulting? Who was left? She tore the nameplate off her desk, engraved in brushed brass, and slammed it into the trash bin. Her phone buzzed again. Unknown number. She snatched it. Hello. Julia Walker. A voice asked, soft, hesitant. Yes. This is Lorraine from Ridgewood Interiors. We were scheduled to speak today about your event proposal. Finally, something normal. Oh yes. Of course. Actually, the woman cut in. I'm just calling to confirm we'll be going in a different direction. I wish you the best. Click. Julia sat back down. The walls of her office, once a soft rose beige, felt tighter now, like they were pulsing inward. Her empire had never been real. It had been Alan's Rolodex, Alan's boardroom handshakes, Alan's quiet approvals at the country club. And with one call, he'd withdrawn it all. She stared at the empty screen, then whispered to no one. I am still me. But even she didn't sound convinced. It started with a drawer jam. Evan, her younger son, the only one who ever called her out on her tone, who still half believed she had a moral compass, was rummaging through the sideboard in the living room, looking for an old photo of the family dog. He said he wanted to use it for a print he was making for art school. Julia told him to check the bottom drawer. Alan used to keep all kinds of miscellaneous junk there. Paperweights, dry pens, maybe some old birthday cards. But what Evan found wasn't a photo. It was a manila folder, slightly bent, tucked beneath a stack of unused holiday cards. He opened it, flipping lazily through the pages. Most were boring trust language and tax forms he didn't understand. Until he reached one that was very clear. Property title, 812 Larkspur Drive. Owner, Walker Family Trust. Trustee, Darla Whitman, deceased. Successor trustee, Darla Evans. Occupant, Julia Walker, non-owner, conditional status. He turned the page, scanned it again, then again. There was a place for a co-owner. It was blank. He stood there in the soft afternoon light for a long time, staring at the signature line. Alan's was there. Darla's successor had stamped it, and Julia had initialed it on 3 different pages. But nowhere, not once, did her name appear as an owner. He carried the paper into the kitchen where Julia was standing barefoot, sipping from a glass of Pinot Grigio that had turned slightly too warm. Mom, he said, holding it up. Why is your name not on the deed? She blinked. What? This trust document. The house isn't in your name. She took the paper from him slowly, her mouth parting just a little too late. Oh, that's, she waved her hand. That's just symbolic. Alan always handled the official stuff. It was a formality. Evan didn't look away. You said he gave you the house. He did. That's what this is. He put it under the trust for tax reasons. His accountant advised it. Everyone does that now. You sign something that says if you divorce him, you lose the house. It's just language, Evan. Legal padding. He stared at her. Mom, did you even read this when you signed it? Her lips tightened. I'm not stupid. Of course I read it. I trusted him. You trusted him and filed for divorce. There was a pause, just long enough for something to break between them. Evan, she said sharply, I don't appreciate your tone. This is between your father and me. No, he said. It's between you and reality. She slapped the paper down on the counter. I raised you to respect boundaries. And I thought you raised me to ask questions. He walked out of the kitchen, paper still in hand. Julia stood there, the sound of his footsteps fading up the stairs like the retreating beat of a gavel. A verdict she couldn't appeal. 10 minutes later, the floor above her creaked softly. She heard his voice, low, serious. He was on the phone. With Alan. She crept to the staircase, listening. She couldn't make out the words. Just his tone, curious at first, then quieter, then silent. The call lasted 20 minutes. When Evan finally came back down, he didn't say anything. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He just walked into the kitchen and set the document on the counter in front of her. His face was unreadable. She looked up. Well, he met her gaze. And in that moment, she saw it. Not anger. Disappointment. Something colder than fury. Something irreversible. He turned without a word and walked out the front door. The sound of it shutting echoed longer than it should have. Julia had always felt at home in banks. The marble floors. The air conditioning set 2 degrees too cold. The hushed tone of voices, as if money demanded reverence. She used to joke that the smell of fresh cash and cheap carpet cleaner reminded her of power. But this time, the sliding glass doors didn't part for a queen. They opened for a woman unraveling. Her heels clicked too loudly on the tile. Her blouse clung too tightly to skin she hadn't moisturized that morning. Her makeup was good, flawless even, but the smile beneath it trembled like a house built too fast on wet soil. The receptionist greeted her like always. Mrs. Walker. Welcome back. Julia didn't respond. She marched past the velvet rope and approached the manager's desk without an appointment. Her voice had that too calm tone of someone who's rehearsed the scene in their head all night. I'd like to access the Walker joint account, she said, ending in 4078. It's urgent. The manager, a man named Philip, who'd once complimented her necklace at a holiday mixer, blinked politely. Of course. Let me just pull that up. She stood there, watching him type. His fingers hovered, paused. He glanced at the screen, then back at her. Mrs. Walker, I'm not finding you listed on that account. She laughed. Too hard. It startled even herself. That's impossible. I've had access for years. Check again. Philip frowned. I do see your history, yes. But the account was restructured yesterday at 12:01 a.m. Your authorization was removed. By who? Her voice cracked at the edges now. You need my permission to do that. I'm afraid not. Mr. Walker is the primary account holder. He executed a transfer to a new structure under his name only. She leaned forward. That money is marital. That money is mine. Philip's voice dropped to a whisper. You'll need to resolve that through the courts, ma'am. No, no, no. We don't need court. I am requesting access to my money. That's all. I'll withdraw it myself. He hesitated. That won't be possible. Why? Because the account no longer exists in your name. And because you're no longer authorized to withdraw from any of the associated accounts under Walker Holdings. Silence. Julia looked around. 2 tellers had stopped typing. 1 security guard stood slightly straighter. A customer behind her began to shuffle awkwardly, pretending not to listen. Her lip curled. Get me the supervisor. Mrs. Walker. Now. Philip sighed and clicked a button. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. She stood there, arms crossed, eyes daring anyone to look her in the face. The supervisor finally arrived, a young woman with sharp bangs and too much poise. I understand there's been some confusion, she said smoothly. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do without written authorization from Mr. Walker or a court order. Julia slammed her hand on the counter. This is my money. I paid the bills. I stocked that house. I was there for every. Mrs. Walker, the supervisor said gently, nodding at the security guard. I'm going to have to ask you to step outside. A small crowd had begun to gather. Quietly, as they always do when something goes wrong in public. A woman in athleisure whispered behind her phone. An old man in line adjusted his hearing aid to listen better. Julia's throat tightened. Don't touch me, she warned as the guard took a step forward. No one's touching anyone, the supervisor replied. We just need to de-escalate. De-escalate. Julia spat. I built that life with him. You think he did it all alone? You think. But she wasn't yelling anymore. She was pleading, begging. They didn't answer. They didn't have to. They just gently guided her toward the door. She walked, stiff-backed, blinking hard, and refusing to let a tear fall in public. As she stepped out into the bright sunlight, she froze. Across the street, a black SUV idled at the curb. Inside, she saw him. Alan. Window cracked. coffee in hand, sunglasses on. He didn't wave. He didn't gloat. He just sipped. Calm. Steady. Like a man watching a process unfold exactly as he designed it. She stood there, panting, half in the sun, half in shadow. He didn't roll down the window. He didn't get out. He didn't need to. He'd already left the building, long before she ever walked in. They met in person, per Rick's request. Julia was wearing sunglasses despite the late hour. The restaurant was half empty, dimly lit, with violin music floating in from the bar. She chose the corner booth without asking, like she still had the authority to make decisions. Rick sat across from her, stiff, his leather briefcase perched beside him like a silent witness. "Thanks for meeting," she said, voice flat. Rick didn't waste time. He pulled out a thick manila folder and laid it on the table. The weight of it made the silverware rattle. "This," he said, tapping the cover, "is everything I should have been given when you first came to me." She stared. "What is it?" "Your marriage." He opened it slowly, revealing pages already annotated with yellow tabs and color-coded highlights. "You signed a conditional dissolution agreement 3 years ago." Julia blinked. "I've never signed a divorce agreement." "Not a divorce," Rick interrupted. "A dissolution agreement. It's a type of preemptive estate structure, meant to define asset reallocation in case of marriage breakdown, including infidelity, abandonment, or legal separation." She laughed bitterly. "You're telling me I signed my own financial death sentence 3 years ago?" Rick didn't smile. "You signed it on the day Alan named you a partial co-beneficiary of the Walker Trust." Her fingers twitched. "That Christmas." "Correct. The day he gave you the framed deed, the jewelry box with the house keys, the dinner at Bellamari. I thought that was a gift." "It was. A conditional one." Julia shook her head. "But he gave me everything." "No," Rick said quietly, flipping to a page near the back. "He let you think he did." He slid the paper toward her. Her signature was at the bottom. Her handwriting, unmistakable. She scanned the clause highlighted in pink. Clause 14C. In the event of marital dissolution, voluntary or resulting from infidelity, all jointly titled assets revert to trust control unless a post-dissolution agreement is negotiated and signed by both parties. Beneficiary rights may be severed without compensation upon breach. Her throat tightened. "This is ridiculous." Rick didn't answer. He just let her sit with it. "He made me feel like everything was ours." "I believe that was the intent," Rick said. "Control doesn't always look like dominance. Sometimes it looks like generosity." She flipped more pages, her hands shaking. "The SUV? Leased. The home? Held by trust. The club membership? Sponsored through the company." Even her own consulting business had been partially funded by a donor line Alan had structured and now revoked. "It's like he designed it," she said, barely audible. "He did," Rick confirmed. "Over years. With advisors. The trust, the property agreements, even your partial access to assets. All of it crafted to look like ownership without legally granting it. He manipulated me. He planned for this," Rick replied. "For this exact moment." Julia stared at the table. The white tablecloth looked blinding under the small lamp above their booth. Her wine glass sat untouched. Rick spoke again, gently now. "I told you this would be clean and quiet. I didn't realize I was walking into a fortress." She looked up, eyes bloodshot but dry. "So what do I have?" Rick hesitated. "Then, the clothes you own. Some jewelry. The consulting entity. You'll need to check, but I believe your name was removed as of Monday. And the marriage license. That's still yours. At least until the divorce finalizes." She didn't speak. Not for a long time. Around them, forks clinked against china. A couple laughed 2 booths over. A waiter refilled a candle. Julia sat, motionless. Then she whispered, "He always brought me coffee in the morning. Every day, even when we were fighting." Rick nodded, unsure how to respond. She stared down at her hands. "I never thought I'd be on the wrong end of him." "You're not," he said, almost kindly. "You're just not on any end anymore." She closed the file. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just sat still, like a house with all the lights turned off, waiting to be emptied. The house was quiet when she pulled up. No tow truck. No lawyers. No clipboard-wielding trustees. Just late autumn sun hitting the lawn Alan used to mow with maddening precision. Tight stripes, symmetrical edges. The kind of lawn that whispered stability. Julia parked on the curb, not the driveway. Her new rental, a pale blue sedan with a cracked console and cloth seats, felt humiliating next to the silent majesty of the home she once Instagrammed as my sanctuary. She walked up the front path slowly. The hydrangeas were wilting. The smart lights didn't flick on as she approached. Her heels clicked against the slate like they no longer belonged to the stone. She reached for the door handle. Nothing. The biometric lock blinked red. She tried again, pressing her thumb down harder. Red. She pulled out her phone, opened the app. It spun, then flashed. Access revoked. Account not found. She stood there for a moment, gripping the handle like it might apologize. Then she noticed it. The corner of an envelope peeking from under the doormat. Not addressed. No postage. Just cream-colored stationery with a clean fold and no wrinkles. She picked it up. Her hands shook before she even opened it. Inside, a single sheet of thick paper. His handwriting. The kind she'd always called surgical. Every letter the same size. Each period a tiny dagger. Julia, you called it the perfect life. It was. Until you mistook it for yours. Congratulations. Folded behind the note was the final trust filing. Stamped. Signed. Certified. Final execution. Walker family trust revocation and transfer of occupancy rights. Occupant. Not applicable. Beneficiaries. Alan Walker, sole. She flipped to the last page. Her name wasn't there. Not as owner. Not as trustee. Not as heir. Not even in the damn footnotes. Her knees buckled. She dropped to the porch, the paper falling beside her like an empty shell. Everything hit her at once. The silence of the lock, the cold edge of the doormat, the faint echo of her own voice asking Alan, years ago, do you want separate finances? We can if you don't trust me. And Alan had just smiled and said, no, I trust you completely. I've got it covered. He had. Every inch of it. Not to protect her, but to make sure when she left, she walked into nothing. No money. No home. No reputation. No version of the truth she could spin at brunch. It was then, not in court, not at the bank, not when the SUV vanished, but here, sitting on her own porch like an unwelcome guest, that she finally understood. She never left him. He had left her. Not in one explosive moment, but through 1,000 quiet decisions, one clause at a time. While she was laughing with her friends about how boring Alan had become, he was drawing blueprints for her exit. While she decorated their forever home, he filed the trust papers in someone else's name. While she toasted to new beginnings, he was writing this letter. Julia curled over her knees, shaking. Behind her, the porch lights remained off. Inside, through the frosted glass, she could see her reflection, just a blur now. Not a wife, not a partner, not even a footnote. Just a silhouette of someone who once thought the world would always tilt in her favor. But it hadn't. And the man she thought she discarded like a pair of last season heels had just walked away with everything.